Hello, everyone. My name is Fraedan. My pronouns are they and them. And today I'll be presenting to you my poster titled Non-Binary Autistic People, Sexual Health, Mental Well-Being, and the Hidden Toll of Camouflaging. Overall, we know that research has highlighted that there might be overlaps between being autistic and being gender diverse. Although there is an understanding that both autistic and non-binary people may present poorer sexual and mental health outcomes when compared to non-autistic and to cisgender people, very little quantitative research that looks at the overlaps of such identity and that considers both sexual and mental health outcomes exists. A key factor in autistic mental health disparities is what is called camouflaging or autistic masking, which is an automatic response that a lot of autistic people display where they alter their behaviors or they kind of dim their autistic ways of being in order to uh, conform socially, and that is often a trauma response for autistic people. However, there is a lack of quantitative research exploring the association between sexual well-being and autistic masking. So our study aims to bridge some of those gaps by exploring the overlap of non-binary and autistic identities while with a focus on mental health, sexual well-being, and autistic masking. For today's presentation, I will focus on the following research questions. The first one is self-reported camouflaging associated with mental health outcomes, specifically anxiety and depression among autistic non-binary individuals? And the second one is, are camouflaging and mental health outcomes associated with differences in sexual well-being for autistic non-binary people? When it comes to our methods, participants completed an online survey as part of a larger longitudinal study on non-binary health and well-being. The survey was developed with input from non-binary and autistic community experts, and we decided to include both formally diagnosed and self-identified autistic participants as a way to depathologize neurodivergent identities and acknowledge the barriers that gender minority individuals face in accessing diagnosis and support. In relation to our data analysis, to explore the relationship between mental health, sexual well-being, and camouflaging scores within the non-binary and autistic sample, we conducted multiple regressions controlling for demographic factors. When it comes to our results, our overall analytic sample included 265 non-binary autistic individuals, and the majority of our participants, so 82% of them, were between the ages of 18 and 34, while 90.7% identified as white and 78.5% reported having completed at least some university, so this was a highly educated sample. Lastly, most of our sample was located in the United Kingdom, that was 38%, but also a lot of people responded from North America and Europe. Our autistic sample presented moderate levels of anxiety. The mean for anxiety in our sample was 11.44 with a standard deviation of 4.82, and mild levels of depression with a mean of 7.90 and a standard deviation of 3.94. 83.4% of our sample reported having thought about suicide in the past. When it comes to results relating to camouflaging and depression, we found that higher camouflaging was among the significant factors associated with higher depression in our multivariable model. And equally, we found that higher camouflaging was also associated with higher anxiety. For sexual well-being, we found that being in a monogamous relationships versus being single was associated with higher sexual well-being, while higher depression scores were associated with lower sexual well-being. However, camouflaging was not associated with sexual well-being. Moving on to the discussion. To our knowledge, this is the first study focusing on mental health, sexual well-being, and camouflaging with an exclusively non-binary sample. In accordance to literature, including cisgender autistic people, we did find that camouflaging was associated with anxiety and depression. However, we did also find that camouflaging was not related to sexual well-being. This last result could point to many different things. It could be that non-binary autistic people feel less of a need to mask in intimate settings, but it could also just be due to the measures that we selected for the study. So this aspect really needs further attention and further examination in future studies. Our study had many limitations. For instance, the sample was not very ethnically diverse. Our sample was mainly from Europe and North America, and the UK, and the design was cross-sectional. We think that further research should continue to investigate the experience of non-binary autistic individuals and especially the links between autistic masking and well-being outcomes, as well as continuing to investigate the sexuality and experiences of non-binary autistic people with the goal of understanding needs and depathologizing sexuality and sexual experiences. Thank you for listening.